Okay, good morning, everyone. So I'm Chief Michael Moore of the Los Angeles Police Department. I want to thank everyone for gathering here at our headquarters today. We want to talk about recent results regarding our partnership with the U.S. Marshals and Operation North Star. With me today, I'm joined by the U.S. Marshal of the Central District, Mr. Dave Singer, a partner for many years, Chief Inspector Justin Davis, as well as Assistant Chief Frankie Sanchez, again of the Marshals Service, and Assistant Chief Al Labrada from the Office of Special Operations from LAPD, as well as the Commanding Officer of Gang Narcotics Division, the division that actually contained the Fugitive Task Force resources that were responsible for our work with the U.S. Marshals, and that is Captain Lillian Carranza. This nationwide initiative, which was announced earlier this year, was called Operation North Star, and across the country resulted in more than 1,500 fugitives, violent criminals, sexual offenders, and sexual self-identified gang members. The effort of this task force was for those individuals, fugitives, who were wanted for the most serious and violent offenses, including homicide, sexual assault, robbery, aggravated assaults. These individuals posed a clear and present danger to the safety of Los Angeles, as well as the 9 other cities that were chosen to be a part of this North Star operation. I'm proud of the work and the partnership of LAPD with the U.S. Marshals Service. That is an ongoing one that has been in existence for more than a decade, and regularly works in identifying violent fugitives and bringing them to the criminal justice system. Bringing some level of comfort and solace to victims of violent crime as well as their families. The results of this the Pacific Southwest Regional Task Force, which is a portion of the overall Operation North Star operation, showed again the successful partnership that LAPD has with the U.S. Marshal and vice versa. In overall arrests, 192 such individuals, which across the country ranked number 4. However, 47 firearms, both rifles as well as handguns, including ghost guns, were recovered by the task force. Those 47 represented the highest number of guns seized across the various 10 cities. Again, 61 murder suspects were also captured and will be brought before the criminal justice system. Again, that was the highest number of murder suspects on any of the 10 cities. And then lastly, the highest number of gang members, self-identified gang members, were also arrested as a result of this effort. Again, the critical arrest of these individuals is meant to bring some measure of comfort, some measure of assurance to both victims and their families of violent crime that the criminal justice system, the Los Angeles Police Department, the U.S. Marshals Service will do everything within its power to bring before the criminal justice system those responsible for these heinous crimes. Additionally, it's meant to give the community a sense of safety that despite the increase in violent crime that we've seen with the onset of the pandemic and the civil unrest of more than 2 years ago, that the Los Angeles Police Department, that federal agencies, that every agency that works in this region is working collectively together to marshal our resources to identify and bring before the criminal justice system those persons we believe responsible. As I conclude and introduce U.S. Marshal Dave Singer, I want to commend again the ongoing partnership, and I want to call to Washington that as they draw the attention on success of this Operation North Star, that they recognize that its success is built upon a partnership that is increasing the number of officers within the U.S. Marshals Service, increasing the number of investigators and task force operators within ATF, within all of our federal partners. Historically, our agencies have worked best when we bring added resources and not just funding. While funding is important, what's also critical going forward is that the U.S. Marshals Service continue to grow in its size so that these type of task force and operations can continue and have the type of results that we're seeing here. With that said, we'll be happy to answer questions here afterwards, but I'd like to introduce at this time the U.S. Marshal for the Central District, a friend and a colleague for many years, Mr. Dave Singer.
Thank you, Chief Moore, and I want to echo a few of the points that Chief Moore mentioned just now, and to first say that the U.S. Marshals Service has conducted a nationwide high-impact fugitive apprehension initiative focusing on the country's most violent offenders in 10 cities, and obviously LA was one of those cities. This 30-day initiative called Operation North Star resulted in the arrest of almost 200 fugitives, gang members, sex offenders, and violent criminals in the Los Angeles area. Operation North Star concentrated on fugitives with arrest warrants, wanted for the most, and I want to repeat this again, the most serious, violent, and harmful offenses, such as homicide, sexual assault, robbery, and aggravated assault. We wanted to make an impact in the community on crime and violent crime in particular. I just also want to say the U.S. Marshals Service remains committed to assisting state and local law enforcement with reducing violent crime in our communities. And as Chief Moore said, we do this through our Regional Fugitive Task Force, where we have local agencies working with federal agencies, and together we multiply our resources and we try to arrest the most violent criminals. And again, by partnering with our local and state law enforcement partners, we're able to hone in on the most dangerous criminals who cause the most harm. And I would also like to thank the men and women of the LAPD and our local task force officers for their hard work, long hours, and dedication in putting together this operation and a successful conclusion, again, with almost 200 arrests. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshal Singer. We are going to have Captain Lillian Carranza available for the Spanish translations and discussion of this task force. So let me identify the 10 cities, if I will. You'll find that they're all major cities across the U.S. landscape: Baltimore, Chicago, Houston, Indianapolis, Memphis, New Orleans, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and of course, Los Angeles. These cities, as you look at the rates of violent crime, particularly homicides, sexual assaults, robberies, aggravated assaults, and in concert with the number of outstanding fugitive warrants for those offenses, offer the richest ground, if you will, for the investment of these dedicated federal task force officers that could work in concert with the existing law enforcement agencies in those regions. Now, there are some 60 major cities across the United States, and universally, almost to a T, all of them have seen an increase in violent crime these last few years, but to varying degrees, and also to solving various rates of homicides. Lastly, these offenses are typically committed by individuals who are chronic offenders, who are career individuals. And when you look at the numbers of outstanding fugitive warrants for these type of offenses in Los Angeles, we know and we firmly believe these individuals, if left to the streets and not brought before the criminal justice system, will continue to see the types of offenses we see: shooting violence, robberies, aggravated assaults, the various things that we as a department are focused on. So I applaud the U.S. Justice Department. I applaud our federal partners and the U.S. Marshals Service in bringing the collective federal partners to these cities in this focused effort. And to the other cities that would be desirous of this, I know the Marshals Service as well as our other federal partners have existing resources, but just as local law enforcement post-pandemic have seen workforce reductions, so have our federal partners. And so one of the strategies today is to marshal resources on the hottest issues, on the most pressing demands, which is why it's important for me to remark that as we do that, and we appreciate that, it's also critical that just as local law enforcement are beginning to see their agencies rebuild from where they were pre-pandemic, that our U.S. Marshals Service and other federal partners need to achieve the same strategy so that we can get back to having a more robust law enforcement agency resource available as problems arise and as we pursue safer cities across America. In regards to the arrests, there were 192 physical arrests, 47 within the task force just in LA in this region, not nationwide. These are numbers just for this region. 47 firearms, 61 homicide arrests, 44 felonious assault arrests. These are assault with a deadly weapon, other types of felonious assaults. 26 felonious sexual assaults, 20 robbery suspects, an additional 12 for weapon offenses, 3 for sexual offenses, and 2 for kidnapping. So as you look across that, those numbers, you'll see, as was discussed here earlier, that the focus on this was against the most serious offenders that we have on our streets today. I want to introduce the commanding officer of Gang Narcotics Division. I also want to thank her. Captain Carranza leads a command that has complexities both in gangs, narcotics, and weapons. What we see, of course, is that each of those efforts they commingle and they demonstrate an interaction with one another. Gangs, narcotics, and drugs, gangs, guns, and narcotics we see frequently resulting in the loss of life. Her team, which has been impacted by staff reductions these last 2+ years, has continued to stay in the effort, continue to stay focused on the most serious offenders and those factors that contribute to our gun trafficking, our gun violence. So Captain Carranza, thank you for that leadership, and I would open the mic to you at this time for your remarks.
Thank you, Chief. My name is Lilian Carranza. I'm the commanding officer. Mi nombre es Lilian Carranza. Yo soy la capitán a cargo de la división de gangas y narcóticos. Estamos aquí hoy para informar a la comunidad esta operación que se llamó Estrella Norte. El Departamento de Justicia identificó 10 ciudades aquí en los Estados Unidos que han sostenido la mayor números de violencia, como violaciones, ataques, homicidios de personas y también robos. Tengo que agradecer al Departamento de Justicia por escogernos a nosotros. También tengo que decirle muchísimas gracias al US Marshal David Singer y al jefe de policía Michael Moore por apoyar esta operación. Aquí al par de mí se encuentran los individuos de los US Marshals con los que yo colaboro. El inspector principal David Justin y el asistente inspector Frankie Sanchez Jr. Esta operación pudo arrestar a más de 1,500 individuales que han cometido crímenes de violencia en todo el país. Aquí localmente en Los Ángeles, en esta operación, arrestamos 205 personas que tenían orden de arresto. 192 de ellos fueron arrestados físicamente. Recobramos 47 armas de fuego. Ese número es el mayor número de armas que fueron confiscados de todas las 10 ciudades en la nación. Se arrestaron 61 sospechosos de homicidio. Eso significa 61 personas y familias que van a poder tener su día en corte. 44 arrestos por asalto, 28 por asalto sexual o violación de mujeres, también 20 por robo. Tuvimos 12 arrestos por violaciones de armas, 3 por otras ofensas sexuales, como por ejemplo mantener pornografía de niños menores, y 2 por haberse llevado a una persona contra su voluntad. Lo que quisiera también decir es agradecer a las personas que trabajaron esto, los hombres y las mujeres que estaban ahí afuera todos los días de la semana, de la mañana, en la noche, cuando fuera, y tuvieran esa llamada, inmediatamente ellos respondían porque saben de que estas personas fácilmente se pueden escapar y perderse en la comunidad y también reofender a otras personas en la ciudad. Hay 3 casos que quisiera discutir con ustedes, uno de ellos siendo que una de las personas que arrestamos fue el individuo que le disparó a un oficial del California Highway Patrol y fue arrestado por esta operación. El oficial estaba haciendo su trabajo aquí en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. El otro crimen que ocurrió fue uno que involucró a Ángel David Flores Trevino, un joven visitando a su familia de México, y una persona decidió que iba a disparar adentro del carro mientras su primo estaba ahí, otra señora y 2 niños. Esta operación pudo arrestar a Matt Prince, un individuo de 30 años que es un residente de la ciudad de Hollywood. También la operación pudo arrestar a un individuo que en el Valle de San Fernando se metió a la casa a las 3:30 de la mañana, y mientras los padres y otra familia estaban durmiendo, atacó a una niña menor de edad en su cama, la asaltó sexualmente y se fue. Ella le comentó a sus padres y pudimos resolver ese caso y él también fue arrestado. Como pueden ver, estas personas son individuos muy violentos. Muchos de ellos también tienen antecedentes anteriores y si los dejamos en la comunidad, lo más probable es que van a reofender a otra persona. Aquí deberíamos tener un lugar donde podemos trabajar, vivir y visitar aquí en Los Ángeles sin tener que enfrentar este tipo de crimen. The collaboration has been phenomenal, but let's not forget about the men and women that work around the clock, through days, through holidays, through weekends, canceling days off, because they knew that sometimes we have a very short span to respond and arrest this individual before they become a fugitive and disappear again. But there were 3 cases that I wanted to highlight that the task force was responsible for arresting these violent criminals. The first one, it occurred on June the 14th in the North Hollywood area when a California Highway Patrol was shot while doing his job here in the city of Los Angeles. That individual was arrested. On June the 18th, in La Cienega on Obama Boulevard, there was a family visiting from Mexico. A 17-year-old who had aspirations of attending medical school, his cousin, a lady, and 2 young children in the back. This individual, Matt Prince, shot and killed, we believe he shot and killed the victim. This individual was also arrested by this task force. I would like to also add that all these cases have been brought forward by the community members and solved thanks to assistance from the community. The other case occurred on April the 2nd, around 3:30 in the morning in the San Fernando Valley, where this individual broke into the house and while the parents and other family members were sleeping, sexually assaulted a little girl. He was later arrested by this task force. As you can see, these are individuals that are violent. Most of them are repeat offenders, and they needed to be taken into custody. We should all feel safe visiting, working, and living in the city of Los Angeles. And I cannot overstate how important it was to arrest these individuals and make sure that they have a day in court and these families have closure. Specifically going back to the homicide arrest, that was 61 homicide arrests. That means closure to many friends and family members who are going to have their day in court. It's not going to bring back their loved ones, but it's going to give them a sense of closure and justice.